Addiction is just a beginning of the end. In the previous episode, I described to you how anyone can go from watching pornography 0 times per a year, even up to watching it 5 times a day. During this process, certain stages or chapters a person is going through. And in today's episode, I'll be telling you more about these chapters themselves. Before I start, know that these chapters are only as an illustration of how you can see yourself slowly becoming more and more addicted to pornography and whether you even are addicted to pornography. What is the proof? It is nothing else than me just doing this. So think of it as an illustration. So let's start. Chapter 1, Deception or the Lie. In this chapter, frequency of the user who is watching pornography is pretty much at zero up to watching it maybe once a month. So it is very occasional. The intensity stays parallel, meaning that the thing that you naturally find sexually attractive are also the things that you are looking forward when it comes to pornography. This chapter is defined by the lie, or meaning that you believe that porn is harmless and that it is safe. You occasionally watching pornography and believing that nothing bad can happen. So the chapter 1 is pretty much defined as the lie, denying pornography can cause harm. Chapter 2, repetition or the habit. In order to get to the chapter 2, pornography requires a purpose. In order to repeat the behavior needs to be rewarded, which means if a person wants to shift from watching pornography maybe once or once in a while or maybe like once in a few months in order to make it repetitive, which is from maybe 1 a month to once a week, it requires a certain purpose. It requires a function. The way the function works is pornography or the addiction acts as a solution to some kind of problem, meaning that there needs to be a certain discomfort or even a pain that the pornography is helping you to get rid of. Not solving the problem, only getting rid of the pain that the problem is causing. Most of the time, what the statistics showed is that most common reason why people tend to turn to pornography during adolescence or even children is because of boredom or procrastination. These are the two most common ones. When it comes to a child or an adolescent, these are also some of the motivation factors or the pain points that can motivate someone to reach out for pornography, which is having bad grades at school, getting bullied, experiencing a traumatic event. For example, it can be being abused, or it can be a hostile or unhealthy family surroundings. When it comes to an adulthood, this can be, for example, high job requirements, which causes stress, bad working environment, conflicts with parents or family members, health problems, financial problems, anything that can cause a discomfort or even a pain is something that the pornography can become a solution to it. Again, not to that problem itself, but to the pain that the problem is causing. So if you find yourself watching pornography regularly, repetitively, and you notice that it is usually after you feel some kind of discomfort, some kind of pain, then it is a strong sign that at least you are here. Chapter 3, the addiction. Here the frequency goes from once a week to once a day. The genres you tend to watch are now strongly shifting from the parallel to the outlying, most likely staying already at outlying, which means that the thing that you naturally find attractive, that make you sexually aroused, are no longer satisfying, which means you have expanding the pool of genres that you are tolerating. Most of the time, these genres are not realistic. People with plastic surgeries showing certain parts of the body that are not naturally occurring. There are maybe even scenes where, or we can also talk about animation and a cartoon or anything that pretty much is not real. So we are shifting from something that is real into a fantasy where things are enhancing the things that you find attractive. The way you can find you and know whether you are here is by the best way is to actually try to stop and not watch pornography for like 2 weeks. If you can manage to not watch pornography for 2 weeks, it's a sign that you have a control over it. If you don't, it is a strong indicator that something is going on. The chapter 2 and the chapter 3, which is the habit and the addiction, can be seen as a very similar one, which they are, meaning that they both are done regularly, they're done repeatedly. But the difference between a habit and addiction is that you tend to keep doing that behavior even at the cost of knowing it is causing you pain. When it comes to habit, in order to reinforce a habit, it needs to get rewarded. In order to break the habit, it needs to get punished. When it comes to the addiction, this system pretty much breaks, and the addiction and the habit develops into something that, even though that is causing you pain, you tend to still keep up going. This is an addiction. Chapter 4, Escalation. Here the frequency is shifting from once a day to 3 times a day and even more. It can happen where a person is no longer using the pornography only when the time is available, but it creates a new window throughout the day specifically dedicated to have another session of PMO. The intensity is outlying, and it is very common for a people to shift genres very often. A person is no longer in the just safe pornography, it is expanding into a different genres that tend to satisfy one's fantasies, and a person is slowly losing interest in activities that he used to do. For example, if a person used to study, if a person was, for example, doing sports, if he was going outside pretty much, then these activities don't provide a lot of dopamine instantly, which means that when compared to pornography, which not only is instant but also provides much more pleasure, these things tend to get put aside and only leaving the pornography as the only source of the pleasure. This means that not only a person is losing interest in activities or hobbies, but also in the need for social interaction. Chapter 5, Desensitization. The frequency is moving from 3 times a day to 6 times a day, almost reaching a cap of how many times a person is physically able to watch pornography. Here, intensity is slowly shifting from outlying to deviant, meaning that the person is accepting genres where a illegal content, hardcore pornography, where the behavior is very aggressive and very hostile, tends to be illustrated. A person is slowly entering these genres and making it as norm. The only activities when it comes to outside of the pornography that tend to be kept are the only activities that provide also a high amount of dopamine, which is eating high calorie food like fast food, gaming, gambling, taking drugs, or the pornography itself. Here, a person no longer finds satisfaction in anything else other than the activities that give him the strong amounts of dopamine. Otherwise, everything just feels dull, everything feels gray, and nothing pretty much can satisfy him or give him some kind of pleasure, some kind of feeling, except the high dopaminergic activities. Also, a strong need to avoid social interaction, isolation, and keep being in isolation, or even having a social anxiety can be present here. Lastly, chapter 6, aggression. So we are talking about watching and consuming pornography maybe 6 times and even more, if it's even physically possible per day. And the intensity is pretty much deviant, where it is very little close to the thing that the person originally started from. Which means we are talking about genres which are hardcore, which can be considered as a hard porn, and tend to get illegal or are even illegal. In this stage, the years, we are talking about the years and years of consuming pornography, the months or years of living in this numbness, which was the chapter previous, the desensitization, are shifting to aggression, where a person is frustrating for unable to satisfy his high demands for dopamine, which means that this aggression tends to get out of control. Usually, when it comes to men, their aggression gets to turn against other people, most of the time women. It is commonly here to observe a beginning of paying for in real life sex services, normalization of one night stand, using or normalizing unprotected sex, using or being violent when it comes to the when it comes to having sex, or it is, or the person has increased tendencies to have sex in unusual places, or even at places where there is a high risk of getting caught. So pretty much it's anywhere he can, he will. Enough of the pornography. In the next video, I'll tell you more about the recovery.